Hello, second graders. Today we're going to be reading the first half of Seymour Simon's book called Penguins. What do you already know about penguins? As you listen, look for the special ways that Seymour Simon has written this book. Penguins are champion swimmers and divers, but they are not fish and they are not aquatic mammals such as dolphins. Penguins are birds because they have feathers, and only birds have feathers. Like birds, they lay their eggs and raise their chicks on land. But they don't look or fly like most other birds. Instead, they seem to fly through the water, and they spend much of their lives at sea. All penguins live in the southern hemisphere, from frozen Antarctica to the warmer waters of the Galapagos Islands near the equator. Penguins are defenseless, so they usually live in out-of-the-way places, safe from most enemies. Since penguins are very social, their nesting areas called rookeries may contain thousands of pairs of birds crowded up against one another, such as these king penguins. Even at sea, penguins usually swim and feed in groups. The penguin colonies on Antarctica are huge, containing 20 million or more penguins at times during the years. On the first page, Seymour Simon introduces you to penguins, much as he did with frogs and dolphins. What are some things that tell you about penguins on this page? Penguins have big heads and short, thick necks. Some penguins have crests and differently colored heads and bills. Black, blue, or gray feathers usually cover the upper parts of their bodies. Their legs are set low on their bodies and they waddle from side to side as they walk. If people walked like penguins, they would fall over easily. But penguins rarely seem to trip and fall down. The 17 penguin species live in many different places, but all penguins feed at sea, like this emperor penguin. Some dive as deep as 1,500 feet to find food. Their main meals are small fish and squid. Antarctic penguins also feed on krill. A penguin's tongue and throat have stiff, backward-facing barbs that help grip slippery food and keep it from sliding out. When a penguin swallows food underwater, it also ingests salt water. When a penguin, special glands drain the salt water into the penguin's nose. The salt water runs off its nose when the penguin surfaces. Paddle-like flippers, a short wedge-shaped tail, and webbed feet help make penguins good swimmers. Some penguins spend 3/4 of their lives in the water, occasionally for months at a time. Penguins have a streamlined body shape in the water. A mid-sized penguin can slice through the water like an arrow, cutting through the air. The penguin hunches its head into its shoulders and presses its feet close to its body against its tail to help steer. In the water, the motion of the penguin's flippers resembles the wing movements of birds in flight. Their heavy, solid bones help penguins stay underwater and keep them from bobbing to the surface. Penguin eyes are huge and help them see clearly underwater as well as on land. Penguins can stay underwater for 10 to 15 minutes before coming to the surface to breathe. Most penguins can swim 5 or 6 miles per hour. However, some can put on a blazing burst of speed as much as 15 miles per hour. The fastest a person has ever run in 1 hour is a little over 13 miles. What are some new things about penguins that you've learned? Even though penguins spend much of their lives at sea, they all return to land to lay their eggs. The season for mating depends upon the penguin species and habitat. In temperate zones, breeding season is often in the spring. During the mating season, penguins head for a rookery. When he's ready to mate, the male stands, arches his back, and stretches out his flippers. He makes loud calls and waves his head and flippers. He bows, struts about, and may offer a rock as a gift. If fights break out, the males use their bills and flippers to hit their rivals. When penguins, like the king penguins on the left, find their mates, they bond by touching necks and slapping each other on the back with their flippers. By singing to each other, they learn to recognize each other's voices. A penguin may stay with its mate for years, or as long as the pair has chicks together. In about 4 days, most kinds of penguins lay 2 eggs. Both parents take turns sitting on the eggs for about 4 or more weeks, depending on the species of penguin. During incubation, the brood patch, an area of skin on the lower abdomen, becomes swollen and warm. The chick uses its egg tooth, a small point on the tip of its bill, to break through the eggshell. Within a few weeks, the chick grows feathers that provide insulation against the cold. While their parents search for food at sea, chicks often stay in groups called creches for safety and warmth. Chicks beg for food from any passing adult or even other chicks. So adults identify their own chicks, like these king penguin chicks, by recognizing their distinctive calls. When a chick pecks around a parent's bill, the parent feeds it partially digested food from the parent's stomach. When chicks are ready to leave the nest, they shed their first feathers and develop waterproof feathers. Now they are fledglings. Before long, they will make their first journey to the sea to build up their body fat. What are there some things about babies, penguins, and their parents that remind you of other species? How are chicks and fledglings different? Besides the lack of food in bad weather, penguin chicks have to contend with many dangers, particularly from predators, such as mustelids, rats, dogs, pigs, gulls, sheathbills, and giant petrels. But the skua, an Antarctic seabird, is the chick's worst enemy. While in flight, a skua can pick up and swallow a small chick in a single gulp. On the ground, a powerful skua can catch and drag a good-sized chick away from the protection of the colony. Adult penguins have no natural enemies on land, but at sea they are preyed upon by leopard seals, killer whales, fur seals, sea lions, and sharks. A leopard seal, right, swims along the edges of the ice pack or hides under ice floes waiting for a penguin to dive into the water. And that is the end of part 1. You can hear the rest of the book of the penguins tomorrow.